Hello everybody, my name is Infiniti and welcome to day 22 of Vlogust. If you don't know, I'm the face and the voice behind all the content under Infiniti Crafting Co. So anytime you see that name on the web, it is me. Today's topic is going to be a topic that I am very passionate about. I am almost as passionate about this as I am crafting should be kind. And this video is probably going to be full of unpopular opinions, but you know what? I do not care. That sounds so bad, but I don't care because it's one of those things. It's just one of those things. So, that topic is why I will never, ever start a brick and mortar business. And, you know, people say never, and I agree, because life has a way of making a liar out of you. But, unless God says, move here, here's the land, here's the down payment, here's your inventory, times 3, here is your target audience, your consumer base, be free, my child. Unless the Lord Jesus says that, I will never, never, ever want to establish a brick and mortar. At least where I am right now. Anyway, I'm a good old Missourian, and you know what? For the most part, this area of the country believes that we should be raised up in the way we should go so that when we get older, we do not go astray. Most of this area in the country. Why will I not be starting a brick and mortar business? It is story time. So, way back when I first decided that I would actually commit towards learning how to craft. Now, I'd been wanting to learn how to crochet as a younger kid, or I'm sorry, knit when I was a younger kid because I didn't know about crochet. By the time I did start knitting / crocheting, what was that, 15, 16, something like that, I was all gung-ho. I had a whole business plan lined out. I'm like, oh, you know what? It would be fun to have a knit shop. I could have some of my makes over here. I could start dyeing my own yarn and have that over here. And I was imagining the whole setup. I was very cheery and hopeful and had a very bright and vivid outlook on the world at that point. Fast forward, I am 22, and I am very positive. I'm very optimistic as far as what I'm doing now. But all that I had back then is not so much there anymore. And I'm going to tell you why. So, over the years, you know, you get older, you get wiser, and I don't live in fear, but you do get to observe your surroundings, and you start to realize people are crazy. People are crazy, and crazy for no reason, none whatsoever. And it has taken me so long to not be angry about, at least this year, it's taken me so long to not feel angry when I start to explain this because of just how prevalent it seems, I guess. I don't watch the news a lot typically, but you do hear things through the grapevine. Things do pop up, and you do get to hear about current events and things like that. And this year, no. So anyway, going through the years, you know, you hear different crazy stories and about people and their businesses and things like that. And it's so sad to see the lack of humanity that other people have towards other people. And so, you know, all the stories. Now, before this year, you know, there was this story. It was in the news very briefly. This girl, she was either 18 or 20. She was fresh out of, I think, high school pretty much. And she just started her own beauty supply type store or whatnot. And she was doing very, very well. And anyway, there were these individuals that entered the store or whatever. And I guess they were casing the joint. But they ended up coming around and they X'd her off for no real good reason. Not really. And like I said, that was about a couple years ago or so, and that broke my heart. I'm like, wow, she was just, you know, getting her life started, and you have these people for either jealousy or they were just, you know, being evil, and they took this girl out while she was following her dreams. Okay, so before that story hit the media, I was just like, you know what, I don't think I want to deal with people so much. And then, you know, that came out, and I was like, no. Nope. No. So I'm like, okay, well, online business, so it had to be around 18 2018. So then I started my Etsy shop or whatever, and I wasn't really pressing it that much. I think I was trying to build my website and do other things. I was still coming up with logos and really just at the creation stage of where I wanted my business, my brand to go. So at that point, like I said, designing my logos, I didn't design it until summer of 18 when I was taking graphic design. It just came to me in class. The Lord was like, hey, doodle this while he's talking. I'm like, okay. So I did that, and I was like, oh, I really like that. And that's how my logo came about. Anyway, besides the point. So fast forward to this year. This year has basically put the last nail in the coffin, as far as I'm concerned, in my head, as to why I would not want to start a brick and mortar. So, you know, this year has been wild. 2020 has been absolutely insane. I know 2019 for me was what I called the garbage can year for me. I was like just dealing with a lot of things with school, with people, and just trying to get my stuff together and get back to a place where I could be positive and happy and joyful again. My normal cheery self. So by the end of that year, I think I was pretty much there for the most part. And then, you know, New Year's, the Lord told me, okay, you know what, 2020 is your year. I'm like, okay. 2020 started off rocky for me. I was kind of sick towards the beginning of the year, and I'm just like, but I'm trusting you, you know, kind of thing. I was feeling so bad. And so, you know, he has delivered in many areas. I have been able to grow my brand and accomplish things. I got into university, which I was desperately worried about. That was one of my biggest concerns this year, and he provided through that, like, by a long shot. I got scholarships. It's great. But, okay. So, you know, I was starting to feel very, I don't want to say, what do I want to say? Lethargic, maybe. When it came to like just getting up, going to campus, going to work, and then coming home, it was like I was getting burned out, and I knew I was getting burned out, and that was really bad for me. But you know what? Once spring break came around and I realized that I didn't have to work spring break, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this as a blessing. I'm going to sit back and chill. And then, of course, you guys know from there, mid-March through the rest of this year, we have been stuck indoors. And through that, you know, there has been many things to spark off, especially over this summer. You guys know what I'm talking about. And when it decided to explode, the amount of people that I saw advocating for the burning, the destruction, the pilfering, the looting, that broke my heart. And before I get into my piece, I do want to say, you know, there were a lot of people that were like, if you don't, basically, like, if you don't advocate this, for this, you care more about burning buildings than you do human life. Okay. Okay. So, you know, there was that. That really made me angry. And then you had everybody sharing all the death and destruction that was going along with that. And I'm like, okay, what about the justice for the people who have been locked indoors since the middle of March? And you guys are they're just getting on social media to like kind of get away from what's happening in the world. And here you guys go sharing grotesque things and other things that can be detrimental to somebody's mental health, especially for a lot of people who deal with their mental health, having been stuck indoors, haven't been able to go out with their friends or have other means of escapism that they once had before the lockdown began. You guys are screwing people up on the inside. You make them distance themselves. That was not I. But anyway, let me see. So all the advocating or whatever, and then, you know, all the posting and people, this one post stuck with me. Because I kept saying it. I'm like, you know, burning stuff down, isn't it? Burning stuff down, isn't it? And, you know, you had people just still posting it. And I'm like, this one person on my timeline posted, and they were like, to the people who have, basically, who don't agree with the looting. And that has stuck with me over these several months. I'm like, okay. So I started kind of distancing myself from my social media. And that might sound crazy to some people, but no. Because first of all, I don't need all that negativity and violence and ick going into my spirit. But then also, what do I look like as an aspiring entrepreneur sitting up advocating for the destruction and the burning of other people's establishments? What do I look like? And then all the violence and death that ensued, that was just ugh. It was so bad, my heart went out to these people. So then once all that started and the rioting broke out, there were several cases. There was this veteran, I think it was in the Chicago area. He took his life savings and he put it into this bar. He was going to start a sports bar. They came in, they ransacked some things. I don't think they burned anything, but all his glass was gone. His equipment was either busted or taken. Everything was just jacked up. There was this other older gentleman. I never found his name or a GoFundMe for him, but he had a corner store, I guess, and people, it was during broad daylight, and people were just going in. They were burning his building. They were robbing him blind, and he's out there crying about it. This man was in tears, and I could have cried for him because I felt his sadness. He put his life into his business. That was his livelihood, and you had this mass mob of people out there just not giving a darn. His pleas fell on deaf ears. Deaf ears. And they ruined his life. And then a lot of these places, they were barely making it by because of the shutdown. And then you had these group of people just destroying things because they were angry. There's a way to deal with your anger without ruining everybody else. You're not supposed to take your anger out on other people. And you know, then there was this poor little Asian lady. I think it was in like New York. Her and her husband, I think it might have been a beauty supply or something like that, but these people were robbing it, and you had these 3 overgrown men. They were beating her down with a ladder and a 2x4, and they were like holding the guy back and threatening him, and I'm like, in what world is this okay? Like, these are people with their physical storefronts. What? They had their little apartment above the thing. They decided to come out and be like, hey, please don't do this. This is our store. We have nothing to do with this, blah, 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 blah. But no, people take it upon themselves to just harm. And again, I don't live in fear, but you know, the Lord gave me a little sense. And I prefer not to be brutalized if I could help it. Not to run that risk. That was ridiculous. That was totally uncalled for and ridiculous. And then people were advocating at first to just burn down the big corporations. But the thing is, the whole situation was like a toddler, a 2-year-old. You don't give 2-year-olds certain leeways. You don't give them that inch, because a 2-year-old will take that entire miles. They might even take it 10 miles. They might even take it 10 miles, and then you're just like, child. You know, so it's like, it's the very same thing. You can't say, oh, let's burn the big corporations, they'll rebuild. And people were giving in to, I think maybe one of the CEOs of Target or something said, oh, we can rebuild, have fun with it. Yeah, the key word is can. So, those of you not from St. Louis, Ferguson, everybody's heard of Ferguson. Ferguson has never truly bounced back from 2015. There are still so many empty shells of businesses that once were, a lot of them small businesses. The Target that was over in Ferguson, they closed that down. It was closed all the way up until this year, and they decided to put a big fat label on it talking about, we're going to build a MERS Goodwill. But then C-19 hit, so I don't know if that's developed or not, because I haven't been over that way. I haven't really left my house that much. I know that area did try to get a little lit here recently over something. I don't really remember, but I'm just like, come on people, not again. Not again. You have a lot of small businesses and big corporations that look at this and they're like, oh, this is going down. Who in their right mind would stay? I sure wouldn't. The licenses office is closed over in Ferguson. There are a lot of small restaurants and businesses that I used to enjoy in my childhood that are now gone over there. And it's like, what for? And I'm sorry, any business owner in their right mind, they would pack up, leave, get the heck out of Dodge. Because why would you stay in a place where, you know, your livelihood is potentially susceptible to being turned into ashes? At least that's just me. You know, I mean, bad stuff can happen anywhere to anybody, but if a specific area or city or state or something is constantly advocating for destruction and yeah, burn it down, anarchy, I'm moving. I'm leaving. And, you know, basically it's like a modern version of the riots in the 60s in Detroit and Chicago. And we all see what happened with that regard. A lot of big companies, car manufacturers, they were like, screw this, goodbye. And so, you know, it is really odd to me, you know, where people are just still so oddly expectant for you to want to start a business, a physical brick and mortar business these days. And I'm not talking about in general. I'm talking about the people who are out there rooting for this. And some of these people are trying to start businesses. And they're like, yeah, burn it all down. Or trying to be self-employed. And it's like, okay, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur or you're trying to be self-employed, even if you are working a 9 to 5 or part-time or whatever, stop all of that. Stop all of it. Because how are you going to be like, anarchy, burn it down? And then you turn around and you come to me and you're like, hey, how's business going? Oh, I'm not answering your questions. And again, these are just my humble opinions. Hey, people either receive these opinions or they don't. It's just mind-blowing. It's astonishing to me how people could advocate for such violence. And then again, back to the people who are talking about, oh, you care more about burning buildings than you do a person's life. No, look at it. So people target these retail stores. I don't care if they're high end, low end. The people who also target the mom and pop shops. You have to think about, okay, what's the demographic that works there? It's typically the high school kids, fresh out of high school, or either in their like sophomore year. Wait, not sophomore, junior year. College kids, low to no skills. And then you have a lot of elderly people coming out of retirement, or, you know, these are the jobs that they can get because they need extra money to pay for their medicine and food and other things that disability or social security will not pay for. And so, you know, you have this demographic of people that you're hurting when you're burning down Target, when you're looting this place and you're destroying that place and things like that. But I don't care about people. You guys are destroying hundreds of families. Hundreds of families. And my heart goes out to these people who who had jobs even amid all this mess with C-19, who still had jobs up until the point where their job may have gotten burned down or ravaged or whatever. So, back to why I'm not starting a business, especially not in the city. I would move back to the boonies and back to the country and start a business before I ever would in the city. For these specific reasons, because there was nothing coming out of Rolla. There's nothing coming out of any of the small countries. I didn't hear about Sykeston being on fire. I didn't hear about Cape being on fire. I didn't hear about the Bluffs being on fire. I didn't hear about any of the small rural areas being on fire and people dying the death over trying to defend their business, their life's work, or, you know, their vitality, their lifeline. I didn't hear about none of that out in the country. It was in these cities. And it's heartbreaking. It honestly is. It honestly is. Now, just to put things into perspective, you know, personally, I've been working on my thing since 2016 for sure. And it is now 2020. And I feel like I am at a halfway point at this point. I feel like I'm at a halfway point. So imagine all the extra time, energy, money, expenditure that, there's a sound, that it would take to sit up and set up a physical shop. And looking at things as they are right now, and just looking at the areas that, you know, where these types of business, the type of business I would want to start would be flourishing. Looking at that, looking at the mass mindset of people in the area, because it's by area. It's not everybody, but it's by area. I would be quite irate. Irate isn't the word for how I would feel, maybe enraged, but even I feel that would not be the appropriate term for how I would feel if another 2020 were to rise up and somebody felt, I don't know, entitled, or they felt presumptuous enough to come burn down my business or ransack my business or whatever, especially considering in the future I may want to get off into actually making clothing, like sewing and things like that. And just kind of putting that into perspective, I'm just like, you know what? And the first thing I would sit up and be looking at are all the people who essentially advocated or encouraged or endorsed this behavior. Even if you weren't out there directly setting the fire to my bricks, I would be highly upset. Highly upset. And out of the 150 people-ish that I knew, there were only about 4 that weren't talking about burn it all down. Like, and those are the people that I could have meaningful conversations with during that time. And it's just like, it was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. It was maddening. It was saddening. And it still is saddening because you still see people doing all this rioting and looting and stuff. And it's just, you're not doing anything but hurting yourselves, because these businesses are not coming back to these areas. If they know their business is going to be set on fire every 4 years, they're not coming back. I don't care what they say. They just say it to save face, and then you're sitting there looking kind of stupid because you're sitting up being like, yeah, woo, they said it's okay. And then some people think it's okay because certain businesses have insurance. Insurance is the biggest pain in the butt. It is the biggest pain in the butt. Anybody that owns a car or anybody that owns a house knows that insurance companies can be funny. They have their loopholes. And for the most part, with business insurances, most of them do not have a clause in there that says, oh, every 4 years should people want to start a mutiny or something, a revolution, and burn your stuff to the ground, we're going to totally cover it. No, that doesn't happen like that. And even if you do by some graceful means get part of your money back, that's only part of it. Do you have enough to rebuild? Do you have enough to redo inventory? A lot of cases, a lot of times, the answer is no. And a lot of these things close forever, and then that's jobs gone. That's people's salaries and livelihoods gone. They're stuck trying to job search. And it's like, if they haven't gained a skill, they're going to have a heck of a time trying to get another job. And so, you know, that's frustrating because you're not just affecting one person. You're not. At the end of the day, it's just selfish. And, you know, for you to, again, to assume, again, the insurance covers all. It does not. It does not. And even at that, again, once you cash it in your policy or whatever, your premiums go sky high through the roof. And it's like, okay, was that worth it? It probably wasn't. And then these places go into debt, or they have to file for bankruptcy, and it's just a whole mess for everybody. It's not just a shell. It's not just a building. It's not just somebody's establishment. And people are like, yeah, you know, down with the man, and burn the establishment, and down with capitalism. And again, these are some of the same people that are trying to be self-employed and start businesses and things like that. But I digress. I will not comment further on what I think about that. You know, it's so sad. Like I said, the Lord leads me somewhere else outside of this city, outside of a city space, and He's like, here's X, Y, Z, my child, be free. I will go and I will do that, and I would flourish however He sees fit. But until then, no. 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 Because at the end of the day, my safety, I feel, is more important than having a brick and mortar business. I am very happy doing online stuff. And there are a lot of people who flourish and who are very successful that do online business, and they make it work. And until my day comes to be set up in a place that I am meant to be, I would not. And I typically stay away from like heavy topics and certain opinions of mine, because I feel like we get enough of that, especially people who pay for cable. I do not. I do not have cable funneled into my house, but people who, you know, they're more tuned into the world than others, you know, they're getting fed this stuff day to day to day to day, and it's enough negativity. So I feel like my channel in general should be a typical free space. I think I only go on a rant maybe once a year. The last time I ranted, it was over Ravelry. So just to give you an idea how often I actually dive into stuff like that, it's just, it's not what I want to do for my channel for the most part. But I thought I would put that out there because there are a lot of people who ask me if I would ever start normal business or a brick and mortar or something like that, and my answer is no. No, no, I would not. And some people, and like, you're gonna have people who would like see this and they would be like, well, screw your business then. Okay, but you weren't my target audience in the first place. You these are people who would like never hit a share button that is free, let alone buy anything from me, or, you know, subscribe to my channel, or do any of those things that generally supports an artist or a creator or whatever to help them be successful. So it's like, at the end of the day, did that extra opinion hurt my feelings? No, 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 it did not. It did not. It did not. And again, like I said, this is a very unpopular opinion amongst my peers. Out of 150 plus people, I only had 4 people that I felt like I could probably vent to at the most. That's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. In general, that's pretty sad. But anyway, this has been a video. I'm not gonna ask if you guys enjoyed this video, but it is at least my take on some things regarding my own entrepreneurship and where I'm looking to go. And it's digital time for a long while for me. Not the most popular opinion, at least amongst my colleagues. It's very sad to see that people would cheer on your demise, but such is the world, I suppose. So now that that is over, no more heavy topics for a while. I will be back tomorrow with a more happy video if you guys are wanting to stick around on that. That was another thing why I didn't really have a lot to say during these recent months, because I was trying to figure out not a tactful way. Well, yes, tactful, but I put a lot of thought into my words, and I try to say things in a way that gets my point across, but it's not just bleh, you know. So yeah, no more heavy for a while. I hopefully will have nothing to rant about for the rest of the year. I will come back tomorrow with a happier video because this is Vlogust and I'm a typically happy person. This is a happy channel, a happy crafting space. And until then, happy making.